My junior year, these white girls were singing and saying the N-word on Snapchat. We posted the video on Twitter to bring awareness to it, and we're going to the dean the next morning. That night at 1 a.m., campus police came to my room saying white girls were terrified for their lives and felt threatened.
This documentary was inspired by Black at Southern, an Instagram page that allowed Black students to express their experiences at Southern. Today, Kenny and I have asked the community at Southern about social justice, and here are the results.
So my definition of social justice would just be like acknowledging the different intersectionalities between marginalized populations, and I guess being someone who's aware of your privilege and actively works to like make the world a more equitable place.
Prior to coming to Southern, my definition of social justice was very like general and broad, something along the lines of making sure that the world or the system is equitable, safe, inclusive, and welcoming for all people.
The definition, I knew it had a lot to do with a lot of marginalized communities and discriminated against communities, but I didn't necessarily have a fully formed definition. It was more in the works when I came to Southern.
Based on my experiences from before I got here and then when I coming here, my experiences, I would say social justice has everything to do with equity rather than equality, which has to do with resources and access to all types of students with disabilities, students of color, women, all stuff like that.
To me it means just, equality, equity for all. I mean, we're all people. I don't really see why there should be any debate in that. I personally think that, all this hate, this bigotry, excuse me, is stupid, because we're all people. We all still have eyes, ears, nose, hearts, all that. Like,
when I first got to Southern, social justice, I think it really started, I started hearing about it more like my sophomore year, and that's when they started putting up banners and whatnot.
We asked the interviewees if they had experienced or heard of any injustices on Southern's campus.
Well, there was that situation with the teacher that said the N-word.
And I thought that was very it was just not, it was unnecessary. And then after that happened, I noticed that there was a lot of other things going around, happening, even just friends and stuff like that, or people that I call friends, or people I associated with. And they would say things that are, racially biased. And it's okay, I might let it slide, but, stuff like that happens at Southern all the time. It happens, even when you're not at Southern. So it happens literally all the time.
So basically, it was time to take the final exam, and I had a few questions that I wanted to ask him pertaining a few problems that would be on the exam. As we know, physics with calculus is a pretty hard class, physics 230. So it just happened to be me and these other two Black girls that stayed behind after class to ask for help. And then he was like, of course it's you people that's staying after class. Yeah, and one girl was really, really upset about it. I actually didn't even really notice that he said that at first until one of the other girls messaged me and the other Black girl in the class, and we talked about it.
We asked a couple of interviewees if it was possible for Southern to uphold the commitment of being a community without hate speech or bigotry.
Hate speech is interesting because I think a lot of people try to wiggle that definition around so that it is not seen as hate speech, but I think hate speech can be considered anything with that kind of malcontent, looking to hurt somebody with any kind of generalization or any kind of hurtful word, with any kind of deeply rooted message. So obviously the N-word is a really big one. There's a lot of anti-Semitic hate speech and things like that, slurs.
Okay, so pretty much from what I heard, just because it's a state university, and the state has laws, and the federal government has laws regarding free speech, it's really hard to control instances like that where people use racial slurs or say anything derogatory, because it would kind of be counteracting the laws to act in a way that criminalizes or, um, what's the word? Get students in trouble for using racial slurs. Yeah.
Here, we ask the interviewees if Southern upholds their commitment of hiring staff that represents the diversity of the campus.
In certain departments, they're definitely lacking in that initiative.
Most definitely. I think when it comes to majors like sociology and stuff like that, you see a lot more teachers of color. But I'm a chemistry major. I have yet to see a Black professor.
Faculty-wise at Southern, like people who teach, we only have about not even less than 10%. It's not the problem. Not getting Black faculty and staff is retaining them. Obviously, if Southern doesn't have the right equipment, skills, and resources for Black faculty and staff to thrive, they're gonna actually find places elsewhere they can go. And I feel like Southern does a good job of recruiting it, but not following through.
And here the interviewees discuss their feelings on the Black Lives Matter March from fall semester 2020.
I hosted the march with Jamil Harp. He unfortunately couldn't make it to the actual event because he ended up having to be quarantined.
It just seemed very okay. I think some people were there with good intentions, but it seemed very performative, especially when, let me not name call, but like certain people were given the opportunity to speak about, the matter, the George Floyd situation. That was after George Floyd, right? Yeah, and it just seemed like they were there to gain good press.
I feel that if you're gonna have a march concerning the concerns of Black students, then you need to have Black students' hands in it. So I feel like that was very inappropriate for them to do. And it was really obvious, even the administrators that we had to go to talk about it, because I guess I was just invited to the meeting to, I guess, put in my input considering I run the convo. But there were no Black administrators there, and they're talking about, oh, is it gonna be a march or is it gonna be a walk, and what is it gonna look like, and how can we make sure that the students don't get too aggressive and that it's more so like a mourning ceremony. And it's just like a whole lot of things that I feel like Black professors, a lot of questions that Black professors or Black administrators would not have to ask because you would understand what it is. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, if you're gonna proclaim that Black Lives Matter, then people should not be writing the N-word in the bathrooms with no consequences.
It did what it was supposed to get done. It had people become more aware and in that regard. But my personal opinion, marching is only just going to do so much. So it's just kind of like, what's the next step from here? Because we've been talking about these things.
It was powerful. That day, this campus, came together, and it was student led and faculty backed. It wasn't a thing that the faculty force fed us in terms of the social justice talks we have on campus. And that's not to say that all that's not necessary. It's just that when it comes from the students, and the students are standing up and saying we want this change for the society we're about to enter as full-grown adults. It was inspiring.
So that's what I say when I have to play devil's advocate, that sometimes it's not always the university. The university runs because of the students, and if students want to see change, they have to be the change. And I wanted to do that, and I wanted to set an example, but I can't keep doing that for students. I'm tired. I'm graduating. And I hope that the student activism committee that came out of the march keeps doing what they're doing, keep holding town halls, keep being in student government's face, keep doing all of these things, because that's why I originally wanted to do it. I did it for my peers.
In this section, we asked interviewees, are there any roadblocks that's stopping Southern from educating the student body on social justice?
That they run on campus, to have only Miss Diane really doing the bulk of the work. And when she asks the other organizations for help, like the white run organizations, they always decline. It's actually really, really frustrating. So that's the thing I don't understand, is that you have this commitment to social justice, but the majority of your white organizations don't even want to work with the Multicultural Center to pursue that objective. How does that work?
This is good because we actually need
Me and my supervisor, Miss Diane Brown Albert, in the Multicultural Center, we have spent my entire 4 years trying to get our white counterparts to show up to these events. We, in fall 2018 in November during Social Justice Month, we held the first annual Diversity Dialogues, and we spent so much time reaching out to specifically the white Greek organizations, because that's where you reach out to those orgs, that's where you think you can get a mass of them to come, because if one of them's gonna go, one of them, they're gonna bring their friends, you know what I'm saying? We did everything we could, reaching out to the president, the e-board, their advisors, to get them to come, and they didn't show up. Second year came around, we did the same thing. We even accommodated to their chapter meetings that they normally have on Wednesday nights and moved it to Monday, and it did not work. We not this past fall, but fall 19, we had the social justice retreat, which we do every year, and I was a rep at large for SGA, and brought it up to SGA weeks in advance. We had, I think 3 were signed up, 2 of them ended up not being able to go, and then one of them just didn't show up. And I swear to God, excuse what I'm about to say, but I almost cussed her out, because we put in so much effort. Like, it actually aggravates me, and I don't have an answer for you, because we do everything we can. We take all the steps that we need to do to get these students to show up, and it's because
pre-COVID, there were people who showed up to the events, but most of them were Black. We didn't really see white people showing up to events. And I think I get the chance to say this because I did go to a lot of those events where we had deep discussions. Some of them were light discussions. Some of them were just like festive things, celebrating other people's cultures and stuff like that. Like, white people don't show up to that on this campus. Yeah, I don't know about post-COVID.
I mean, it's the type of programming too, because at Rep Your Flag, I see them. I see them at Rep Your Flag. I see them at Cultural Fest. I see people wanting to take part in Black culture and other communities of color's cultures without actually having to show up when we're having discussions about harm. And that's the major issue. I mean, even post-COVID, that's going to be an issue. This semester, attendance in general has been low.
Here, we ask the interviewees how Southern can improve to make it a more equitable environment.
Right. I think that it's tough, again, because like you said, it's not the school sometimes doing these things, but it is the people at the school. And when you're a school like Southern, the people at your school represent you still. So if someone does something bad and it says Southern Connecticut State University under it, that does speak for our school. So I think it's a very tough situation. They sort of do have to take accountability for that, because it's like, we as a unit, like, you accept these students in, and if they do something wrong, you accepted that student, even if you knew about it or not beforehand. So I don't think that diversity training should be the end goal. I don't think that should be the be-all, end-all. Like if we incorporate diversity training or racial inclusion training or anything like that, that shouldn't be like, oh, we're done. I think that could be a step in the right direction, because I think that we need to make it institutionalized. Being a social justice university, prove it by doing these things. But I think the ultimate goal would have to be involving culture, like, again, eradicating racism, which is obviously easier said than done. But diversity training and everything that you had mentioned, I definitely think that could contribute towards a better future, but I don't think that is the better future at that point.
Like they do with the, I can't remember, it's the sexual assault thing that they do every semester. People have to mandatorily do that. I think that maybe implementing something like that, having it be like, having people understand that, like, you're living with other people on the campus, you're going to be around other different types of people. So, like, educating people on these topics and issues would be good. That'd be a good way to implement that. At least then I guess you can say that you did your part, and the school can say they did their part in, like, educating folks on, like, what to say and what not to say, and how to interact with other folks and not do X, Y, and Z.
I feel like it shouldn't be a not anymore training. I feel like it should be, I think it should be an in-person training. And I feel like, honestly, if you want my real answer, I feel like social justice should be a part of the LEP. For asking me if it should be the 4th tier, I absolutely think it should be. And I think it could be like a range of classes, whether it's like you have to take like an African American studies course. There has to be a women's gender study course. Like I think it should be at least 3 courses that you have to take. Going to social justice institution, it should be in the LEP.
At their discretion or when they first get here?
When they first get here. I think it should be the co-taught class with INQ, the critical thinking class. I think it should be a social justice course.
Take what we have into consideration, particularly the staff and the students, because there's a lot of people who aren't on board with social justice, so we have to work together as a team, you know. And it's difficult because we got many people that have been here for centuries, and they think it's a losing game. And we asked this question when we interviewed for the new DEI vice president, like, what's your plan to get people who are not on board? And a lot of people that we interviewed were like, well, we're gonna have to find a way to agree to disagree. Because a lot of people, when they apply to Southern, that's the first thing they put in the welcome line for job searches. Not job searches, but like at Southern, we are an aspiring social justice institution, stuff like that. So it's just like, I think that's catchy to get people to apply, but I mean, they're trying. They have a long way to go.
I would suggest really going like tapping in with the youth, like going to middle schools, tapping in with elementary schools, you know, telling people that they could come to Southern. Like this is, you know, where you want to go. Because realistically, when you go to school or any kind of school, really, like you're a student, but it's really more about the people that are around the students, that are teaching these people things, that are helping them, you know, to grow. Because those students are only going to be students for so long. Sooner or later, they're going to be the people that are, you know, helping us, you know, figure all of these solutions or problems that we got. So I feel like they would definitely, you know, benefit off of, you know, touching them with high schools more, middle schools, and even elementary schools, because that's where it's at. Like once we become old, it's on them. Like how our parents are old right now, it's on us. You feel me? We have to keep that kind of thing up. So